Testing, 1 2 1 2. All right, shalom, shalom. Okay, first and foremost, I want to say, call Allah, Yahweh, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Harakat, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of great millstone from whom I learned the truth from, and also peace and salutations to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, mighty shalom. All right, we the Hebrew Israelites. We come out on the streets of America, known as Babylon the Great, according to Bible prophecy, and as well, you have like-minded brothers throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, preaching the gospel throughout the four corners of the earth, according to the Holy Bible. Okay, which the gospel, according to the Bible, in these end days entails of what? Okay, the destruction of the United States of America, known as Babylon the Great in the book of Revelation, as well as, okay, the deliverance of the Lord's elect. Okay, the deliverance of the elect of Yahweh Shema Shai, which Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father, whom this world calls God, and Yahweh Shai is the name of the Messiah, the begotten Son of the Heavenly Father, whom this world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Okay, this gospel tells the destruction of America, known as Babylon the Great, and as well the deliverance of the elect of the nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, out of Babylon the Great America, as well as delivered throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, and this is all upon the second coming of whom this world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, whose real name is Yahweh Shai. Okay, which means he deliverer in the Hebrew. Okay, in the Heavenly Father's name, Yahweh means he is, or he exists, or he is to be in the Hebrew. See that? And as I always like to start off, in 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and verse 1, it says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy." Who are the Lord's people? The Israelites, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It says, "Which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true." And the Lord has raised up his prophets, okay, and his apostles, starting with the apostles and the bishops and the elders of great millstone, whom I learned the truth from, as well as the beloved men who labor before them, okay, to do what? Stand upon their feet and preach and prophesy and wake up the elect of our people out of that dry bone state, pursuant to Ezekiel the 37th chapter, okay, for the elect to be sealed with his word, be sealed with the Holy Spirit, okay, and as well stand upon our feet to preach and prophesy the downfall and destruction of Babylon the Great America, along with its European allies, the NATO and the EU, which are being more and more divided up in these other days. Okay, more and more countries, all right, more and more of these NATO and EU countries are looking at America with the side eye, and especially looking at the current state of Israel with the side eye. I believe recently out there at the UN, this guy, all right, Netanyahu, okay, the prime minister of the current state of Israel, Netanyahu, I believe recently he stood up and did a speech before the UN recently, and the majority of the EU countries, NATO and the EU countries, pretty much walked out on him in the middle of his speech, okay, because these European nations that's allied with America are seeing more and more every day, okay, who really and truly owns America, who controls America, why America and their European allies are really fighting all these wars and spreading their dominance throughout the earth, is ultimately all for the benefit of those the 48ers, okay, the tiny tops, which are known as, all right, Edomites, according to the Bible, specifically of the tribe of Amalek, okay, as it tells you in Numbers 24. Amalek will be the first of the nations, okay. Amalek is the head tribe of the nation of Esau, Edom, pursuant to Genesis 36, and as it says in Numbers 24, Amalek will be the first of the nations. That word first, when you go into it, it means head or chief, okay, and that's those 48ers, okay, those tiny tots that's over there in the land of Israel, doing all that bombing, all right, starvation, destroying, all right, grape robbery and murder, all right, those are Amalekites, okay? In the EU and the NATO countries, America's European allies are being more divided up more and more in these latter days, looking at America with the side eye, all right, and especially divided up over what's going on over there in Gaza with those small heads, okay? And these again, all right, and these again are all a part of prophecy that we, the hopeful elect, speak on, okay? Second Ezra 15 and verse 1 again, behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Okay? You know, not only are the words of Yahweh Shema Shah going to be found faithful and true in these latter days, but also the men, okay, who stood up on their feet and preached the words of Yahweh Shema Shah throughout the four corners of the earth are going to be found faithful and true as well. Okay, because what we're preaching according to the scriptures, all right, prophecy, the everlasting gospel, and is also known as throughout the scriptures as a testimony. Okay, what we're preaching throughout the earth is also known as a testimony throughout the scriptures. Okay, things that we're seeing in the news, seeing in the current events, seeing all throughout the internet and social media. Okay, you know, speaking on it, witnessing it. All right, because that's what a witness has, right? A witness has a testimony. He speaks on things that he's actually heard and seen with his own eyes and own ears. Okay, you know, when the scripture speaks about, you know, he that hath ears, let him hear. He that hath eyes to see, let him see. Roughly paraphrasing it, because hey, you know, we the hopeful elect, we're witnesses, and we have this testimony. We speak on the things that we see going on throughout the earth, and the things that we hear going on throughout the earth. You know, we fact check things, of course, and ultimately we fact check everything that we see going on throughout the earth according to the scriptures. All right, according to the words of Yahweh Shema Shai, which are faithful and true. It says, verse 3, 2nd Ezra 15, verse 3, fear not the imaginations against thee, let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. You know, talking about the 2/3 of our people that don't believe in this message that we preach, okay, that don't take heed to the words of Yahweh Shema Shai, and is not seeking the Lord while he may still be found. It says, you know, the Lord tells us, don't fear their imaginations against us. Okay, nor their incredulity, their unfaithfulness. All right, all of this scoffing and gainsaying and mocking that the 2/3 of our people are doing against this Israelite ministry. Because what's going to happen to them when it's all said and done? Verse 4, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Point blank, period. 2/3 of our people are going to be cut off and die in their unfaithfulness. Okay, and with that MOTB in their hands. You see that? Because 2/3 of our people, all right, that's not going to choose Yahweh Shema Shai in these other days. They're going to choose Esau in this beast system and end up bowing the knee and taking the Karagma and end up being destroyed. Which that's the part of this everlasting gospel that we preach, pursuant to Revelation 14 chapter. You know, Babylon the Great is fallen. Don't worship this beast system, America, NATO, and the EU, nor its image, okay, its policies, its you know, the way that America models itself after ancient Greece and ancient Rome, right? That's what the image all goes into, right? And then ultimately, you know, Esau is moving everything towards the NWO system, okay? Where, you know, what is Esau going to implement when he goes to implement his NWO system? That mark, which is also one of the main lyrics of the new song. Don't worship this beast system or its image or take his mark, or else what? Those of our people that's going to bow the knee and worship this system, the NWO system, and take that charagma, the micro C hip, all right, what? They're going to be destroyed, okay, in the presence of the Lamb and the holy angels, as it speaks of in Revelation 14, all right? And so, like it. All right, and so, as you can pretty much see the theme of today's camp, all right, the terrible one is brought to naught, all right, and that's coming from Isaiah the 29th chapter, all right, Isaiah 29. This is Isaiah chapter 29, and I'm gonna start at verse 18. It says, in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness. And that's us, the hopeful elect. This is the day. Okay, ever since the Lord sent down the Holy Spirit, back in the late 60s, early 70s, when our forefather Abba Bivens came on the scene, okay, and the Lord raised him up to preach the gospel during this time, to wake up the elect during that time, who eventually, taught our, the apostles and the bishops and the elders of Great Millstone to eventually wake up us, the hopeful elect, in this time, in 2025, okay. The Lord has sent down the Holy Spirit upon his elect, okay, to to open up our eyes from the spiritual blindness that we were in, raised up here in Babylon the Great, raised up worshiping all the idols and the customs and the cultures of the system, celebrating Christmas, Easter, eating all types of unclean, abominable foods, all right, not knowing who we are as a people, not knowing what the hell is going on the earth, not knowing who our enemy Esau Edom is, okay. When we were ignorant of all these things, we were blinded, okay, spiritually blind. But it says, Isaiah 29, verse 18 again, and in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness. Okay, and it's truth, which is likened to light. Okay, a great light is what helps us, the hopeful elect, see out of the darkness and the obscurity of this world, which is what? All the lies, deceptions, enchantments, and witchcrafts and psyops that Esau Edom, the so-called white man, has pushed all throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, real quick. This is let's see, the second Peter. So lock it, bear with me for a second. Pull this precept. Yep. Real quick. This is Second Peter chapter 2 Peter chapter 2 and not Second Peter, this is First Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. It says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. Okay, who's that speaking about? Us, the hopeful elect. We're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. After what priesthood? The order of Melchizedek, okay, which is Yahushua. It says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praise of him who hath called you out of darkness, right? The darkness and the obscurity of this world, all the lies and the deceptions and the psyops of this world, right? Into his marvelous light. And what is this marvelous light? This truth, this gospel, okay, that we've been called to, us the hopeful elect, that we've been called to and hoping to be chosen. All right, hoping to be chosen for salvation, mercy, okay, to be the first fruits, to enter into the kingdom under Yahushua, to receive the new bodies, to enter into the new covenant, okay, to be joint heirs under Yahushua in the kingdom of heaven, ruling over the heathen nations, setting this earth back in order and righteousness via the law, statutes, and commandments. All right, that's what we, the hopeful elect, have been called to this marvelous light for, okay, hoping to be chosen. All right. So going back to Isaiah 29 and 19, it says, the meek also shall increase their joy in the Lord, and the poor among men shall rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. See that? And we're the meek, all right? Us, the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. We're the meek that's increasing in our joy in Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay? In this truth, calling on the names of Yahweh Shema Shai, working out our salvation with fear and trembling, okay, renewing our minds, all right, taking our minds out of the ways of Babylon the Great, and the rest in the ways of these heathen nations, as the scripture speaks about in Jeremiah. Deliver every man his soul, roughly paraphrasing. Okay, for us to be physically delivered out of this place, it starts with us being mentally and spiritually out of this place. Okay, separating from the ways of Babylon the Great. All these this whole left-right paradigm that Esau is putting before people, which is all nothing but one big psyop at the end of the day. Okay, because these two political parties, the Democrats, Republican, this whole left-wing, right-wing BS is just that. Okay, BS. All right, and it's all part of Revelation 13:11, the two horns like a lamb that's getting ready to speak as a dragon. Okay, the two horns like a lamb. This whole Democrat, Republican, left wing, right wing nonsense. Okay, Esau presents these politicians and these political parties as if they're for the best interests of the people, the best interests of the middle class, and going to bring back jobs to America and make America great again, and all this other nonsense. But it's all leading to people being all divided up and arguing against each other over politics. Okay, claiming that their party is greater than the other party. But meanwhile, they're both in the pockets of the elites and they're getting ready to speak as a dragon. Okay, especially when civil war and civil unrest breaks out. All right, because that you clearly see that that's the direction that Esau is pushing these American people to a civil war. Okay, and he's using politics, all right, along with the financial system. Okay, the middle class versus the rich, the poor versus rich, that whole paradigm, along with the division between men and women. All right, Esau's the one orchestrating all this division within society to pretty much bring society on the brink of civil war, civil unrest. Okay, and when that happens, which we know that's going to happen according to prophecy, Isaiah 19, Egyptian shall be against Egyptian. All right, 2nd Ezra 15, verse 14 on down also speaks of civil war. Okay, they should not regard their kings nor princes. All right, and even Yahushua himself spoke of civil war. A kingdom divided against itself shall not stand. All right, a kingdom, pretty much, where civil war is going to happen is going to be doomed, roughly paraphrasing it. All right, and civil war and civil unrest is going to fulfill these Edomites, these upper elite Edomites, bringing forth the chaos that they need to come down with their left-hand order. Okay, to come down with draconian laws, draconian measures, take away people's rights, taking away people's Second Amendment rights, their Fourth Amendment rights, the right of privacy, and especially their First Amendment rights, the right of free speech, right of expression, the right of protest, all these things, in which, and we clearly see Esau moving in that direction ever since this guy Captain Kirk supposedly got off. All right, ever since this guy Captain Kirk, C. Kirk, all right, got off. You've been seeing all kinds of people on social media, mocking mocking him going back to the spirit world, or showing lack of sympathy for him going back to the spirit world. Disagreeing with a lot of the things that he expressed and the things that he said. Okay, and Esau has been weaponizing this guy's supposed death to pretty much crack down on free speech. Okay, pretty much label truth, certain talking points that are true as hate speech. You see that? And as a matter of fact, just continue reading on in Isaiah 29 verse 19. The meek also shall increase in their joy in the Lord, and the poor among men shall rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. And that's being done by us, the hopeful elect. Okay, increasing our joy in Yahweh Shema Shai, calling on Yahweh Shema Shai, working out our salvation, making our bodies living sacrifice, keeping the laws and the commandments to the best of our abilities. All right, repenting and converting to Yahweh Shema Shai. Right, and then it says, all right, simultaneously, as the elect are waking up and increasing their joy in the Lord. Verse 20, Isaiah 29, verse 20, for the terrible one is brought to naught, and the scorner is consumed, and all that watch for iniquity are cut off. So you see that? So simultaneously, as the elect are waking up in these outer days, the terrible one, who's the terrible one? Esau, Edom, is being brought to naught. He's being cast down. All right, this beast system is being cast down. All right, along with this image. Okay, all these strongholds of Esau, Edom, his lies, his deception, his pseudoscience, his pseudo technology, his false education system, his media. All right, all these lies and deception that Esau promoted over generations. Okay, it's all being cast down by the elect waking up and preaching His word throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, because as it speaks of, real quick, right? 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 3, it says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh." All right, because hey, we the hopeful elect, we're raised up as a spiritual army. All right, not a carnal physical army. Taking up carnal physical weapons and knives and guns and you know carnal weapons and things like that. All right, no. Okay, we don't war after the flesh. Ultimately, our battle is a spiritual battle. Okay, even the Apostle Paul outlines that in Ephesians the 6th chapter. Okay, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against what? Principalities, powers. Okay, left hand spirits, all these things. That's ultimately what we making war against. The left hand energy of this world, forwarded by the rulership of Esau Edom via this beast system. It says, verse 4, 2 Corinthians 10, verse 4, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Yahweh Shemashah to the pulling down of strongholds." See that? And what's, some of the major strongholds is in the earth right now. Christianity, Roman Catholicism, all right, feminism, the alphabet agenda, okay, Esau's, fake whitewashed history, okay, iconoclasm, all right, and many more. His pseudoscience, his pseudo technology, all right, the way he presents America and his beast system as pretty much the end all be all of life and progress and righteousness on the earth, okay. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, through the preaching of His word, and we, the hopeful elect, we cast all those things down. All right, because Esau Edom has pretty much built this whole entire system off of lies, deception, okay, rebellion. Matter of fact, because as it speaks of in Revelation 13, all right, pretty much the energy, the whole entire energy of this beast system, America, NATO, and EU, will be based off of what? Blaspheming Yahweh Shema Shai, blaspheming His tabernacle, which is His people, the nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and as well blaspheming them that dwell in the heavens, His holy angels, the chariots. Okay, everything about this whole entire beast system ran by Esau Edom is total blasphemy against Yahweh Shema Shai. Great words as it speaks of in Daniel 7, right? But hey, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, 2 Corinthians 10, verse 4 again, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Yahweh Shema Shai to the pulling down of strongholds." Verse 5, "Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of Yahweh, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach Yahushua." See that? So just simply through preaching this word, we're casting out all imaginations, all right, and every high thing that's exalting itself against Yahweh Shema Shai in his outer days. Okay, Esau Edom, his beast system, his elite, all right. Everything that Esau is setting up in the earth in his outer days, we're casting it all down just simply through the preaching of His word. All right. So going back to Isaiah 29 and verse 20 again, it says, "For the terrible one is brought to naught, and the scorner is consumed, and all that watch for iniquity are cut off." Esau Edom, the terrible one. Okay, the oppressor, the tyrant, the mighty man, the violent man. As you go into that word terrible in the in the blue letter in the Hebrew, all right, it all speaks to Esau Edom. Okay, Esau is being brought to naught. He's being cast down by the elect waking up and preaching this word. Okay, the spirit of Yahweh Shema Shai making inquisition upon Esau. All right, and then now Esau's at a point where he wants to crack down on TikTok and social media. Okay, claim that people that are making certain talking points that are right as hate speech, especially the speech that we, the hopeful elect, preach throughout the four corners of the earth, which is this word. All right. Matter of fact, I read verse 21. It says, Isaiah 29 verse 21, that make a man an offender for a word, and lay a snare for him that reproveth in the gate, and turn aside the just for a thing of naught. That make a man an offender for a word. Okay, if you're on the internet and you're speaking certain truths against Esau, Edom, and this, America and its Trump administration and its V system as a whole, okay, you're speaking out against the agenda of the NWO. You're speaking out against the pseudoscience and technology that Esau's putting before people. You're speaking out against his elites. He's going to make you an offender for a word, okay? If you speak out against Amalek, all right, those tiny tops over there in the state of Israel, he's going to make you an offender for a word, especially with the whole anti-SEM rhetoric. As a matter of fact, all right, I want to show this real quick. Let's see. It's locked it. Windy outside. I want to show this to the screen real quick. All right, this is from, as you can see, this is from newarab.com, and you see the title of it. All right, pro-Israel billionaires to Abu Dhabi royals meet the new owners of TikTok. Okay, you see, the source of the article, and you see the title of the article as well. So just to read into it a little bit, it says TikTok, and by the way, this article is from September 26th, all right, which is yesterday, okay, and as it goes into it, says TikTok was sold for $14 billion to pro-Israel billionaires and Abu Dhabi royals, sparking fears of censorship of content about Gaza. All right, because if you go on TikTok, especially over the past few weeks, few months, all right, so on and so forth, you see various videos exposing what those what those tiny tops are doing over there in Gaza right now. Bombing and destroying those people, bombing hospitals, okay, public buildings, bombing beaches, okay, starving those people out, shooting them down, mowing them down with machine guns. You see all the atrocities that's going on over there in Gaza right now, and people are, putting it on film and uploading it to TikTok, condemning what's going on over there in Gaza with those tiny tops, and even matter of fact, even I want to say last week, about a week ago, let me look it up. There was actually a bill that was vetoed by the U.S. By the United States at the UN. Let me see it. Let me see. Yep. All right. All right. So this is what I typed in on Google. As you see, I typed in U.S. veto ceasefire. All right. And I'm going to read the response from the Google AI overview. It says, the United States has recently vetoed several UN Nations Security Council resolutions, all right, several UN Nations Security Council resolutions calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. It says the most recent veto occurred in September 2025, this month, marking the sixth time the U.S. has blocked such a resolution since the start of the war. The sixth time, right? Notice that number 6, keeps popping up, among the dirty deeds of Esau, right? Because hey, this man is the, the wicked according to the Bible. It says, it goes into reasons for the U.S. veto. It says, according to a U.S. representative, the vetoed resolution in September 2025 was unacceptable for several reasons. One, failed to condemn Hamas. All right. Number 2, Israel ignored Israel's right to self-defense. You see, so here it is. The state of Israel. They're doing all of that bombing and all that killing, all that starvation. Okay, all that genocide that they're doing to those people in Gaza. while at the same time portraying themselves as the victim, saying that they're doing it out of self-defense and using this whole Hamas group, okay, to justify waging war, committing genocide. All right, it says hinder diplomatic efforts. Then it says empowered Hamas. They pretend that this made up group named Hamas is growing stronger and stronger. How in the hell could a enemy faction or an enemy group grow stronger and stronger the more you bomb it and destroy it and destroy their cities and their towns and things like that? Okay, how could an enemy group grow stronger and stronger by you doing all these things? But you see, that's how the devil Esau Edom works, starting with this head tribe Amalek. Okay, they orchestrate all this violence and wickedness throughout the earth. Okay, coming down with the sword, and then they use false narratives and in their mainstream media to pretend as if they're the victim. Okay, pretend as if they're doing it out of self-defense. You see that? All to justify continuing to wage war, commit genocide, and rape, rob, and murder. Okay, and matter of fact, what you see going on over there in Gaza is just a continuation of colonization. All right, colonization by Esau Edom. As a matter of fact, I actually looked it up on Chat GPT earlier this morning. All right, I typed in on Chat GPT, what is colonization? And it says colonization is the process by which a country or group of people establishes control over another territory, often by settling its own population there and dominating the local people, land, and the resources. And that's what those tiny towns ultimately want to do over there in Gaza. All right, they want to wipe out all those Palestinians. Okay, they want to do away with the whole what is called two-state solution. Okay, which there never really was a two-state to begin with. All right, because those tiny towns have been dominating that land ever since 1948 when they were placed in that land, which is nowhere in Bible prophecy, right? And even this guy Netanyahu, he even used the Bible to justify waging war over against those people in Gaza. He quoted that scripture out of I believe either Deuteronomy or in the book of Samuel, where he talks about remember Amalek, okay, referring to them as Amalek, right? And using the Bible to justify waging war. But here it is, a lot of these Christians, especially these Edomite Christians, MAGA Christians, and even the Christians amongst our own people. All right, as this guy Netanyahu has used the Bible to justify waging war and shedding blood and committing genocide. All right, these Christians haven't said anything against this man to condemn what he's doing. But meanwhile, us Israelites, all we simply do is just come out on the streets of Babylon, the Great America, and just simply preach out of the Bible that we're the chosen people, that we're the Israelites according to the Bible. We're not taking up arms, we're not waging war against people, as we read in 2 Corinthians 10. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. All right, but yet, okay, just simply us standing upon our feet, and preaching that we're Israelites according to the Bible. They look at what we say as hate speech. Okay, that they look at what we do as the worst thing going. But meanwhile, those tiny tops are over there in the land of Israel, using the Bible to justify waging war, committing genocide, and these Christians have nothing to say against them. All right, they're all for it. Okay, all right, they're all for those people forwarding colonization in the earth. All right, in 2025, and using the Bible to justify doing it. It says. In simple terms, colonization is when one group moves into and takes control of land that already belongs to another group. And ultimately, we know, all right, as those tiny tops are committing genocide in Gaza right now. Well, we know ultimately, okay, that land belongs to neither one of those people. It doesn't belong to those tiny tops, nor does it belong to the people, to those Palestinians. Okay, because all right, what they're doing, all right, what those 48ers are doing in the land of Israel, all right, although we know it's not a fulfillment of prophecy concerning the true chosen people, but it is still a fulfillment of certain prophecies, okay? Ezekiel 36. Right? Ezekiel 36 and verse 5, it says, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea." Who's Idumea? Esau, Edom. It says, "which have appointed my land in their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey." See that? So, those Palestinians, along with Amalek, okay, those tiny tops, all right, they parted the land of Yahweh Shemashah, the land of Israel, okay, with despiteful minds, okay, using that land to gain control and dominance over the earth, controlling trade, controlling the media and influence and all these things, all right, forwarding their left-hand gods and deities and their heathenistic customs, all right, the Quran, the Talmud, all right, you know, just ruling in that land with all types of wickedness and rebellion against Yahweh Shema Shai, you know. So, what those sign tops are doing in the land of Israel to this day, it is prophetic. Okay, we just read it in Ezekiel 36 and 5. It is prophetic what they're doing in that land, but ultimately it's not prophetic concerning the true chosen people, the true Israelites. Okay, because as Yahweh told in Luke 21:24, the true Israelites will be scattered amongst the heathen nations, amongst the Gentiles in captivity until the times of the Gentiles will be fulfilled. See that? And we're just about in that time of the Gentiles, the heathen nations being fulfilled, starting with Esau, Edom. That's why he's being brought to naught. That's why he's being cast down. All right? And that's why, all right, just to go back to that article, that's why he had to, through this Trump administration, okay, he had to pretty much sell TikTok to pro-Israel billionaires, okay, to billionaires that are that support the agenda of the 48ers, okay. Oh, it's lucky, you know. So just go back to that article, all right, from newarab.com. You see the title of it, okay. It says TikTok US was sold for $14 billion to pro-Israel billionaires and Abu Dhabi royals, sparking fears of censorship about content about Gaza. It says TikTok's future in the United States has finally been settled after years of legal battles, congressional hearings, and behind-the-scenes negotiations. It says under a new $14 billion deal brokered by President Donald Trump, the app's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, has been forced to spin off its U.S. arm into a separate entity controlled by a consortium of American billionaires and Gulf royals. All right, so these pro-Israel billionaires that they sold it up to were American billionaires. Okay, American pro-Israel billionaires. You see that? It says on paper, the deal is about national security and data privacy, peace and safety, right? It says, but however, in practice, it appears to be about control and power of one of the most influential platforms for young people in the world and how it will shape political narratives, particularly on Israel. And that's what it's all about. Okay, power, control. All right, influence, as well as controlling the narrative. Okay, because that's another thing that's biting Esau, Edom in the ass in these other days, as inquisition is made upon him throughout the four corners of the earth, as truth has sprung up and all of his lies and deceit has been quenched through these rivers of living waters, this word, okay, he can't control the narrative no more, all right, and especially through things like social media, especially TikTok, okay, because one of the things that makes platforms like TikTok stand out from other social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter X, things like that, is that TikTok has low censorship. Okay, meaning, you can pretty much upload on damn near almost anything on TikTok, and it pretty much won't get taken down. Which now, as of lately, okay, a lot of TikTok content has been taken down for violating what they call community guidelines and hate speech and all this other stuff. Okay, slowly but surely over these months, TikTok has been getting more and more stricter with its guidelines and things like that. And ultimately, because of what? Because TikTok, the U.S. branch of TikTok has been moving closer and closer to pretty much being sold out to the small heads ultimately, as we're going into. And as we see, okay, Trump pretty much officially made a deal with American pro-Israel billionaires, as well as certain Arab billionaires, to sell TikTok under their control. All right, for the purpose of what? Controlling the narrative. Okay, control the narrative for the in favor of those tiny tops. All right. All right. Because Esau's being caught, he's being found out. You know. Matter of fact, let me just get this. Let's see. This is let's lock it. All right. This is Jeremiah chapter 49 and Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 10. It says, "But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself." You see that? Esau can't hide himself no more. It's too much truth all over the internet exposing him, especially by the men of the Lord, starting with the apostles and the bishops and the elders of Great Millstone. Okay, it's too much truth exposing them. All right, it's too many people on TikTok and different social media platforms exposing this agenda, exposing this whole MAGA agenda, exposing this Trump administration, exposing the tiny tops. Okay, exposing the elites of Esau, Edom, and this whole entire NWO agenda, because that's what Esau is ultimately moving this whole world to, with controlling TikTok and social media and technology and AI and all these things. All these things Esau is doing to push this world closer and closer to its NWO agenda. All right, and so as this word is going out, all right, and there's all type of truth exposing them throughout the internet. Okay, Esau is being made bare. Okay, he's being stripped naked and exposed to the point to where he can't hide himself no more. It says his seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. Esau is not. He's trying to present himself as if he's the Most High, that he is the Most High power. He's all knowing, all present, okay, all powerful. But hey, the Lord is showing this devil just simply through the preaching of the word that he is not the Most High. Okay, he is no power. He's just but a man. Okay, a man that has been blessed with on a high level on the left hand side. But at the end of the day, he's still a man. Okay, a weak, inferior, mortal man. Okay, trying to hype himself up and deceive the world to thinking that he's some great power or some great nation on the earth. All right, and the Lord's getting ready to take this devil down. You see that? Let's see. All right. I also want to show this as well, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you brothers and sisters have already seen. Okay, this speech already. This is the recent speech, or part of the recent speech by this guy Stephen Miller, for when they had the Captain Kirk funeral, memorial, whatever, out there in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, this is part of the speech from this guy Stephen Miller. All right, let y'all see it.
In this speech, you guys, he basically plagiarizes Hitler's propagandist, Goebbels. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. Those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. To quote George W. Bush.
You see, so this guy Stephen Miller, all right, at that funeral memorial, he was talking big shit, basically. Okay, coming from that Edomite supremacist, so-called Christian nationalist mindset. Okay, and you already know he was aiming those words towards Jake, so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, because as of recently, we've been seeing Esau Edom going into certain narratives and certain made-up statistics to label Jake as the number one face of terrorism and the number one face of crime and mass shootings and all these things. But meanwhile, as of lately, when you go into actual statistics, Esau has been at the forefront, all right, and leading the league in all those things that he's accusing Jacob being at the forefront of, okay? And mind you, all right, this guy Stephen Miller, whom you just heard in that clip, all right, he's saying all of that, okay, pretty much using this guy Captain Kirk's deletion as a means to justify waging war against enemies of the right, enemies against MAGA and all these things. Okay, but he's coming from a so-called Christian mindset. Now you tell me, did anything that this guy say sound Christian like or sound Christ like? Okay, what did the Lord promote? All right, to pretty much wage war against anybody that's against your ideologies or belief or against the Most High. Okay, no, because the scriptures clearly say, "Vengeance is of the Lord." You see that? The true believers of the Heavenly Father through His Son would understand that we're not at liberty to take up arms and fight against all those that oppose Yahweh Shem Shah, because really we'll be fighting against the whole earth for that matter. And we know, okay, we don't have the strength whatsoever to do such a thing like that. All right. And even let me get this real quick. Even Yahweh Shah himself said this. All right, this is John chapter 18 and verse 36. Yahweh Shai answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence." Okay, but the main point is that, as Yahweh Shai said, his kingdom is not of this world. Okay, and when Yahweh Shai said this 2,000 years ago, who was in rulership? Esau Edom via what? The ancient Western Roman Empire. And where are we at right now? Okay, as Scripture says, that which is then is now. Where are we at right now currently? Under the rulership of Esau Edom, again under the modern day Roman Empire, which is America. You see that? And Yahweh Shai's kingdom is not of this world, as his kingdom was not of that world 2,000 years ago. Okay, so these Christians, all right, walking around with this Christian nationalist mindset, trying to link, all right, the Bible and Jesus Christ to their ideologies and their beliefs and whatnot. Okay, that's all against the scriptures. And even using this Jesus Christ character to justify waging war and coming down with the sword and speaking as a dragon. All right, all of that is against the scriptures. Okay, but hey, what else can you expect from Christians in 2025? That's why a lot of them were all bugged out. Okay, because they didn't get so-called raptured the other day, because these Christians don't have it. They don't have the Holy Spirit. They don't understand prophecy. They don't know the Most High, our Son. Okay, they're just completely out of it. All right, but real quick, I'll look this up. All right, I looked this up on Google. All right, matter of fact, I'm gonna just let you see it. All right. You see what I typed in? And you can clearly see the response from the Google AI overview. So this guy, Stephen Miller, whom you just heard in that clip, a few minutes ago. All right, he's another usual suspect. Okay, he's another tiny top. You see that? So wait, so it makes sense as to why this guy, was making all those harsh, draconian like statements, because he's one of them. He's a usual suspect. All right, and I also have this as well. I typed it on Google. I typed it on Google. What is Christian nationalism? All right, what is Christian nationalism? And this is the response from the Google AI overview. It says Christian nationalism is a political ideology that seeks to fuse Christian and national identity. Or national identity meaning what? The identity of your country, basically. Okay, pretty much linking America with so-called Christian beliefs. That whole facade of Esau pushing that America was founded off of Christian values and the so-called Christian beliefs and all these things. But meanwhile, okay, the scriptures clearly tells you, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet, all right, thou shalt not commit adultery. And meanwhile, how did Esau Edom get this land from Gad and Reuben and Issachar? By those very things. Okay, so no, America was not founded off of so-called Christian or biblical values. All right, it was ultimately founded off of Satanism and Freemasonry. All right, that's what are you Edomites out there? That's what your so-called founding fathers founded this country off of. Freemasonic or left-hand satanic ideologies. All right, that's why your nation's capital is designed the way it's designed right now. The Baphomet, okay, the owl, all right, the Egyptian obelisk, the Washington Monument. All right, all of that goes back to ancient Egyptian, all right, ancient Sumerian, Babylonian, left-hand occultic, satanic, knowledge. All right. So it says again, Christian nationalism is a political ideology that seeks to fuse so-called Christian and national identity, advocating for laws and public policies that reflect a specific set of conservative so-called Christian values. It says it is distinct from the quote unquote Christian faith itself. You see that? It says again, it is distinct from Christian faith itself. Distinct meaning what? It's separate. When something is distinct, it means it's something different. It's something different about it. It's something separate about it. All right. So this whole Christian nationalism, all right, is distinct from what the scripture talks about. All right. It says it is distinct from Christian faith itself, and some observers note that the quote unquote Christian label is used as a veneer to advance a political agenda. You see that? In Esau Edom, ever since the 1400s, the Renaissance period up until now, he's put on this whole Christian facade, this Christian label upon himself, along with that term white, okay, to justify colonization, waging war, genocide, rape, robbery, murder. All right. Matter of fact, it's even all right. Let's go into the scriptures. Using that whole Christian label and that whole white term, along with so-called white Jesus, okay, to justify his madness. All right, and let's get this real quick. In this the book of Habakkuk chapter 1. Habakkuk chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 6. It says, Habakkuk chapter 1 and verse 6 says, for lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation. All right, and Esau Edom is the modern day Chaldeans. Okay, Esau Edom is who rules over this modern day Babylon. All right. And one scripture we can go to prove that Esau Edom is the modern day Babylonians, all right, is Psalms 137. Psalms 137 In verse 7, it says, remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, race it, even to the foundation thereof. Verse 8, O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. See that? So our forefather King David, through the Spirit, referred to Esau, Edom, as the daughter of Babylon. So that's how, all right, that's one reason among many reasons as how we know that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, rules over America, known as Babylon the Great, according to end-time prophecy. And that Esau, Edom, is the modern-day Chaldeans. All right. So what we're reading right here in Habakkuk, the first chapter, all right, although we know Habakkuk was around during the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire, okay, as he's speaking on the things that he saw back during the ancient Babylonian Empire. But guess what? We can link what Habakkuk is speaking about in this chapter to what's going on right now, as we're in Babylon the Great, and that which is then is now. It says, Habakkuk 1 in verse 6, it says, for lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. See that? Possess the dwelling places that are not there. Colonization, right? Because as it went into, colonization was basically what? When one people pretty much takes over another land that's not theirs, and they take over all the resources, okay, the goods, the minerals, the natural resources of their land, exploits the people, right? Make them subject unto them, right? That's what the Babylonians did, and guess what? That's what Esau Edom has done in this time, and using Christianity at the forefront, along with white Jesus and all these things, to justify his colonization. It says, Habakkuk 1 verse 6 again, for lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. It says, verse 7, they are terrible and dreadful. Okay, they are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. And I want to read that in the NLT real quick. Habakkuk 1 and verse 7 in the NLT. It says, they are notorious for their cruelty and do whatever they like. And does it not speak to Esau Edom? Okay, notorious for his cruelty, his violence, okay, his rape, robbery, and murder, doing whatever the hell he wants with no fear of the Lord in the back of his mind, you know, never considering the latter end of his doings. Okay, that's exactly how Esau Edom operates. All right, as the wicked. And this is verse 8. Habakkuk 1 verse 8. It says, their horses are also swifter than the leopards and are more fierce than the evening wolves. You know, and it's interesting how that verse, it mentions the leopard. Okay, because, you know, what do we know about the leopard in Bible prophecy? Okay, the third beast in Daniel the 7th chapter is likened to a leopard, which is what? The ancient Greek Empire. Okay, and of course, not only do we know that Esau Edom ruled over the ancient Roman Empire, the fourth beast spoken of in Daniel 7, all right, but Esau Edom also ruled over the third beast in Daniel 7, which is what? The ancient Greek Empire. Okay, that's why one of the nicknames for the ancient Roman Empire was what? The ancient Greco-Roman Empire. Because what? You know, both of those empires were ran by who? Edomites. Esau Edom. Okay? And as a matter of fact, you know, what was the ancient Greeks most known for? Hellenization. Which when you study Hellenization, what is it going to? Pretty much Esau Edom during the ancient Greek Empire was going throughout the known regions of the earth at that time, especially amongst our forefathers, you know, waging war, conquering, okay, exploiting the inhabitants of the lands that he would conquer, and then doing what? You know, forcing the inhabitants of the land that he would conquer to submit and bow down to Greek idols, okay, adopt the Greek language, adopt Greek cultures and you know, the Greek currency and money systems, adopt Greek Greek politics, which is what? Democracy, okay? As well as take their writings and their history and translate it into Greek, i.e., the Alexandrian library in ancient Egypt, okay? And so, hey, as Esau was going around Hellenizing the earth, more than 2,000 years ago during the ancient Greek Empire, well, guess what? Esau, Edom committed Hellenization in this current time in the form of what? Colonization, okay? Christianity, white Jesus. And as a matter of fact, speaking of white Jesus, all right, the image of Cesare Borgia, as the Apostle Great Millstone always going to, the image of Cesare Borgia goes back to an ancient Greek idol known as Serapis Christus, okay? Which when you go into Serapis Christus, all right, which Christus is where you get the name, the word Christ from, Christus. A Serapis Christus was basically the white Jesus during the time of the ancient Greeks, okay? And guess what? Many of our forefathers were Hellenized and worship and bow down to Serapis Christus, okay? Just like many of our forefathers today still bow down and worship white Jesus, okay? All over TikTok and all over social media, talking shit against the Israelites, all in defense of their Edomite Christian beliefs and trying to save Esau and all these things. Okay, that which is in us now. Our people are Hellenized and colonized all over again, just as many of our people were going back more than 2,000 years ago during the time of the ancient Greeks. Okay, uncircumcising themselves mentally and spiritually. Okay, preferring the glory of the Greeks over the glory of their forefathers, which is the laws and the commandments and the words of Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay, even going as far as preferring to call themselves Americans, right? Black Americans, Latino Americans, Native Americans, over their true identity, which is what? Israelites, all right, Yasha'Allah, from their respective tribes. You see that? But it says, again, going back to Habakkuk 1, let this pass. Damn creepy ass ice cream truck. All right. This is back in Habakkuk 1 and verse 8 again. It says their horses are swifter than the leopards and are more fierce than the evening wolves. And their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as the eagle that hasteth to eat. So notice, okay, it mentioned the eagle. It mentioned the leopard in this verse, and then after that, it mentioned the eagle. And again, the eagle and the leopard in the scriptures are, tied to Esau, Edom. As it speaks of in Obadiah, Esau, Edom exalts himself as the eagle. Okay, just as he did during the time of ancient Rome, and just as he did during the time of ancient Greece. Okay, Esau, Edom has always used the eagle to represent himself. Okay, because what are some characteristics of an eagle? It's the highest flying bird amongst all the other birds that exist in the earth. All right, that the Lord created through his right hand, Yahweh Shai. Okay, they're a predator bird. They love to hunt and take down animals that are bigger than them. Okay, they're also carnivores, meaning they eat meat. And also eagles have great vision. Okay, they can see from miles away. And I believe eagles even have the ability to see underwater from thousands of feet in the air. They can see certain fishes and certain sea creatures from under the water from thousands of feet high up in the air. Okay, they fly at high speeds, and that's how Esau Edom operates. Flying at high speeds with his air force. Okay, and before that his naval force. Because before Esau came up with his air force and whatnot, and using his air force to go around invading countries and bombing and destroying, he used what? He used his navy force to go around the earth, traveling, conquering, and colonizing throughout the earth. Okay, his ships were swifter than the eagle. Okay, Esau always used different methods of travel to forward his conquering, his Hellenization and colonization, all right, to forward his supremacy, his Edomite supremacy, and his violence. It says, matter of fact, verse 9, Habakkuk 1 verse 9, it says, they shall come for violence. See that? They shall come for violence. Their faces shall sup up as the east wind, and they shall gather the captivity as the sand. See that? Esau, Edom has always been about violence from day one. Okay, from the time that he was Cain in the garden, slewing our forefather Abel, the righteous. Okay, was the Lord compensated Adam and Eve with Seth, and call all him love, Yahweh Shema Shah for that, the water Yahweh Shema Shah for Seth, so that that righteous lineage and righteous way that was given to Adam could continue in the earth, leading all the way down to Noah through Shem. Okay, but Esau, Edom has always been about violence from day one. You see that? As a matter of fact, let's get a precept. And hey, it's like if it kind of being all over the place, but hey, it's just a spirit. That's how the camps begins go. But this is real quick. Isaiah 58 in verse 2, it says, "Yea, in heart ye work wickedness, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth." That's how Esau Edom operates. Wickedness, all right, violence all throughout the four corners of the earth. And it says, verse 3, "The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies." So Esau Edom has been speaking lies and commit murder and violence since day one, going all the way back to Cain, all right, and then even going even further before that, back to when he was a serpent in the garden. Okay, Nachash is what that word serpent in Genesis 3 goes into, a witch, an enchanter, all right, a person who deals with magic spells, right? And as a matter of fact, it says in verse 4, Isaiah 58 and verse 4, "Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear." See that? So Esau Edom's poison, which is what? His lies, his deception, his misinformation, his propaganda, all right? His false narratives are like poison, okay? Pretty much intoxicating this whole entire earth, getting the whole earth drunken off his poison, off his wine, okay? And that's why people are so bugged out and confused to this very day, okay? They don't know what the hell is going on. They don't know who's really and truly behind all the wickedness in this earth. They can't identify who Esau Edom is according to the scriptures, even these Christians, because Christians will make the argument and say that Esau is done away with. Okay, he was done away with back in 70 AD. He was done away with after the ancient Babylonian conquest. Well, hey, if that's the case, then when did Esau Edom enter into his blessing before he was eventually, done away with 2,000 plus years ago? Okay, you Christians can't answer that, because what? Even you Christians are drunken, all right, and poisoned off of the toxicity of Esau Edom and his lies and deception. You see that? But going back to Habakkuk 1 and verse 9 again. So let me get a sip of water. All right. Habakkuk 1 and verse 9, it says, "They shall come all for violence, their faces shall sup up as the east wind, and they shall gather the captivity as the sand." See that? And Esau Edom, not only does it go around conquering and colonizing and Hellenizing, but he also puts, all right, the people that he conquers and colonizes into captivity. Okay, exploits them, uses them for free labor to control the resources and the minerals of any particular land that he conquers, especially upon upon our people. And guess what? Esau Edom wants to take slavery and captivity on a whole another level in this current day, because no longer does he want to establish slavery through physical chains and fetters of iron. No, this time he wants to put digital chains and digital shackles on people, on the minds of people. Okay, and that's why that's why we see Esau Edom slowly but surely coming after free speech, coming after true speech, all right, under the guise of combating hate speech and misinformation, all these things, because he wants to control the narrative. And if Esau Edom could control the narrative, He can control, people's thoughts, people's opinions, their emotions. Okay, we can tell them what to be happy about, what to be sad about, what to be angry about, what to accept, what to cancel, right? Because all these things that Esau does is, all right, controlling hate speech, controlling the narrative, controlling lands, controlling people. It's all psyops at the end of the day. Okay, military operations to sway the minds and the emotions and the opinions of people. Okay, people that he aims to conquer. And Esau Edom, he's aiming to conquer this whole entire earth, but this time through technology. All right, pseudoscience, technology, the micro chip, okay, AI. All right, technocrats. See that? It says again, verse 10, Habakkuk 1, verse 10, it says, they shall scoff at kings, and the princes, they shall scoff at kings, and the princes shall be a scorn unto them. It says, they shall deride every stronghold, for they shall heap dust and take it. See that? Esau Edom, when he seeks to invade the land or conquer the land, he scoffs at kings. Okay, for example, look at what he did to Saddam. Okay, for years and years, he was putting the narrative and the imagery on the mainstream news media, making it seem as if Saddam was oppressing his people and killing off a lot of his people, which in a lot of cases that might have been true. You know, because hey, those Ishmaelites and those people out there in the so-called Middle East, they're heathen as well. All right. So meaning what? Their rulership is not completely righteous in the eyes of Yahweh Shema Shai. Although we know certain of their cultures are more stricter than the cultures of the West. Out there in the East, they don't allow their women to talk back to their men. They don't allow sodomites to run around their society. Okay, they don't allow gangster rap music and trap music and women like Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and all that to play on the radio waves out there in their countries. So in certain aspects, they are more stricter and more righteous than the West. But at the end of the day, okay, they're still heathen. Meaning what? They're not completely righteous in the eyes of Yahweh Shema Shai. But Esau Edom, when he aims to conquer or pretty much invade a so-called Muslim nation, he first starts off by scoffing at their leaders and their government. Okay, pushing out narratives that they abuse their women and they treat their women like shit. All right, they oppress their people, with all those strict laws and whatnot according to Islam. All right, but then as soon as Esau gets in there, all he does is commit genocide, wage war, starve our people. Okay, touching the children in those regions, touching the men, sodomizing the men, raping the women. Okay, toppling their governments and implementing puppet leaders and puppet governors to govern over that country to do the bidding of the West. Okay, and as well to take on the so-called U.S. dollar. All right, and as well, he also promotes feminism in those lands, promotes alphabet lifestyle in those lands. Just can totally flips him out and freaks him out. Okay, and it all starts with, all right, Esau pushing out his propaganda, scoffing at kings. Right? It says again, Habakkuk 1 in verse 10, and they shall scoff at kings, and princes shall be a scorn unto them. They shall deride every stronghold, for they shall heap dust and take it. Okay, deriding strongholds. All right. Esau Edom is notorious for, when he conquers a nation of people or conquers a particular land, all right, he goes after the strongholds. Okay, the protected areas of their land. Okay, areas that protect their leaders, areas that protect the elderly and the children, areas that protect, all right, the most precious resources of their land. Okay, because as a matter of fact, looking at the 48ers, right? Looking at the 48ers and how they've been waging war with certain Ishmaelite nations in the Middle East over these past few years, especially Iran. Okay, when the 48ers make war against those countries in the Middle East, what are the main things that they attack? They attack the oil refineries and the nuclear plants. Okay, as well as assassinating the scientists and the engineers, the nuclear scientists and all these things. Okay, because those are strategic moves that you make when you aim to conquer a land or conquer a nation. You go after the cream of that crop, and you go after their most valuable and precious resources. You see that? So Esau understands the playbook, okay? And we're reading this playbook right here in prophecy. You see that? It says again, Habakkuk 1 and 10, and they shall scoff at the kings, and the princes shall be a scorn unto them. They shall deride every stronghold, for they shall heap dust and take it. Verse 11, then shall his mind change, and he shall pass over and offend, imputing this his power unto his God. You see that? And Esau has done that literally for ages, even going all the way back to the time of the Greeks. When he Hellenizes and colonizes another people and another nation, he always does it with the forefront of promoting his gods and his religions and his culture and his customs and his language. You see that? Over another people. Okay? He promotes his ways and his image over, all right, the ways of all the other nations, especially over our ways. Which, what is our ways as the nation of Israel? The laws, the statutes, commandments. Okay? Esau, Edom pushes his image over the image of Yahweh Shemel Shai and over the image of the whole entire earth for that matter. Okay? Scoffing at kings, imputing his power unto his God. You see that? And pretty much in Habakkuk, the first chapter, as we've been reading, that pretty much gives an abridged outline of colonization, basically. Coming for violence, all right, scoffing at kings, deriding strongholds, pushing and forwarding your God upon the nations that you want to bring into captivity and conquer. This pretty much outlines colonization. And you see that the Edomite Christian has been masters of this outline for the last 500-600 years, ever since Esau came out of the caves. And you see now Esau Edom, as he sees his, he's pretty much being backed into a corner. All right, there's all types of truth being spoken against him all over the internet, and especially by the mouth of the prophets. Okay, now he's trying to tap back into that Edomite Christian nationalist mindset, linking American politics and American values with, and trying to link it with the Bible and Jesus and all these things. All right. And this time it's not going to work. Okay. This time, you Edomites, all right, the witchcraft is not going to work in this time. All right. Because these are the time that you're being cast down. All right. As the theme of this camp goes, the terrible one is brought to naught. All right. This is the time for you Edomites to be finally brought to naught. All right. As a matter of fact, let's go back real quick to Jeremiah 49 and verse 10. It says, but I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. It says, verse 11, leave thy fatherless children, I will preserve them alive, and let thy widows trust in me. Verse 12, for thus said the Lord, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. Okay, and art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. You see that? You Edomites are not going to go unpunished in these latter days. And you see, and that's one of the reasons why you Edomites have been so confident, all right, in doing your wickedness over these centuries, these generations, because you thought Yahweh Shema Shai was with you in the midst of all your wickedness. All right, let's get that in Psalms 50. All right. Psalms 50 in verse 16, it says, but unto the wicked Yahweh saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? Yeah, you Edomites, you tried to take the Lord's covenant in your mouth by saying that you're Christians, by putting this whole white label on you, okay? Calling yourself the true JEWs, right? Claiming that you're the rightful heirs of that land, claiming that you're the rightful heirs of the promise given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all right? These are all aspects of you Edomites trying to take the Lord's covenant into your mouth. But the Lord is like, hey, thou, O wicked, what is thou to do to declare my statutes? Hey, the Lord is looking at you devils, you Edomites, which are the wicked according to the Bible, pursuant to Malachi 1 and 4. You're known as the border of wickedness. Hey, the Lord is like, who the hell you devils to take my laws and my commandments and my words into your mouth, seeing that you're the wicked, okay? You're the devil. You know, your whole MO is to be against me and my begotten son. Who the hell is you, right? It says, verse 17, seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee. You Edomites, you always hated the instructions of Yahweh Shema Shai. Going back to the time when you were king, and you deliberately offered up the wrong sacrifice, okay, knowing what the proper sacrifice of the Lord was, okay, which is what? The sacrifice of sheep, all right? You know, which is the sacrifice that Abel offered up, and you slew Abel for that, all right, over your jealousy, and even going all the way back to the time when you were the serpent, all right, when you Edomites, when you were the serpent in the garden, all right, that Nakash, that witch, that enchanter, okay, you were against the instructions of the Lord even back then, all right, you know, deceiving Eve, telling her that she could take upon that forbidden philosophy likened to a fruit, and even telling her what, that she should not surely die if she take on your ways. All right, but meanwhile, you know, ever since Eve took on your philosophies, your so-called fruit, and then eventually passed it down to Adam, all right, you know, we as Israelites, what have we been experiencing from generation to generation to generation? Nothing but death, confusion, all right, rebellion against Yahweh Shema Shai. So you Edomites, all right, you wicked, you Edomites, you have no business, all right, taking on the ways of Yahweh Shema Shai, and most certainly calling yourselves the chosen people, because you were always against the Lord's instructions. You see that? It says, Psalms 50 and 17 again, seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee, when thou sawest a thief, thou contendest with him, and has been partaker with adulterers. See that? You Edomites, especially you Christian Edomites, in this current period of history, you've always partaken in thievery and adultery, colonization, okay, promoting yourself as the top people on the earth, you know, as the righteous people of the earth, okay, promoting yourself as the chosen people, all right, using your so-called whiteness and Jesus Christ and all this other crap to forward your evils and your atrocity and your genocide, all right. But it says, verse 19, thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. And who's your brother, Esau? Us Israelites, Jacob, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and you know, all throughout, you know, since you came out of the caves of Europe during the Renaissance period, all you've done was push out nothing but misinformation and lies to slander our people, and even using pseudoscience and even your Christianity to slander our people. You use your pseudoscience to claim that they were savages and low IQs and incapable of learning, incapable of building. Hey, and as I showed you, this guy Stephen Miller, okay, when he was going on that outrageous tirade, he was basically saying what, pretty much secretly talking to our people. He was saying what, you are nothing, you build nothing, so on and so forth. That's the mindset that Esau has pushed using this pseudoscience, that our people are nothing, we don't build anything, we're incapable of learning anything, we're incapable of any form of righteousness, all right? Claiming that we're savages, low IQ, and all these things. And he's even going as far as using Christianity and twisting the scriptures to even forward and back up his lies and deception and pseudoscience. Okay? Because when it comes to, when you ask Esau Edom exactly who are the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, okay, here in America, and while we're in the condition that we're in right now, slavery, genocide, oppression, all these things, he'll say that we're Hamites and that we're suffering the curse of Canaan, but really we're Israelites. We're suffering according to the curse of Deuteronomy 28, okay, the curse of disobedience against Yahweh Shema Shah. But, you leave it to Esau Edom, okay, he'll say that we're anything but who we truly are, which is Israelites, okay. You say that we're black, African American, Latino, is Hispanic, this, that, and the third, okay. He's using pseudoscience and even Christianity and white Jesus to do what? As it said again, Psalms 50 verse 20. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. Esau Edom has done nothing but slander us as a nation, us so-called black Hispanics, Native Americans, using science, using Christianity, twisting up the scriptures, okay? But it says, and mind you, that's against the scriptures. That's against love thy neighbor as thyself. Esau Edom, okay, he posed himself as this loving Christian and Jesus Christ and all these things, okay. But meanwhile, where's the love at? Okay, you Edomites love to use Christianity to push this whole love doctrine and love vibration. But meanwhile, where's the love at? Okay, where's the history of love within your religion? Okay, all your religion has been responsible for over these past 500 to 600 years is nothing but atrocities. Okay, heinous crimes, heinous sins. All right, wickedness. All right, odious works. All right, colonization. Just the whole 9 yards with your wickedness. All right, you Christians have promoted anything but love throughout the four corners of the earth. Look at the war right now. Right now, the earth and society as a whole is at its lowest that it's ever been. Okay, and this is all under the nose of 2 billion plus Christians throughout the earth. And meanwhile, despite all this wickedness and satanic energy and left hand energy that's throughout the earth right now, you don't see Christians standing up and creating this big uproar against all the evils and the wickedness that's being done throughout the earth. You don't see Christians taking a hardcore stance, calling out those 48ers, although you have a few here and there, but you don't see Christians as a mass, as a whole, calling out those tiny tops. You don't see Christians as a whole, as a massive group, calling out the elites of Esau Edom, his top banking families that control the foods, the air, well, not the air, but control the food, okay, control the music that we listen to, control the entertainment, control the school system, control all these wars that's being waged throughout the earth, control the education system, control the money system. You don't see Christians taking a hardcore stance, speaking out against these things, okay? But meanwhile, you see Christians taking a hardcore stance, coming up against the Israelites, following the camps, okay, trying to do all these stupid interviews with the camps, do all these pointless debates, all right, still trying to prove that the Most High and the Son are one and the same, trying to prove the whole virgin birth nonsense, trying to prove that hell, so-called hell, is a real place, all right, that you go to when you die, you so-called burn forever, that same rhetoric, still trying to argue, whether we should keep the laws or not, still trying to argue to whether we can eat pork and shrimp and all these abominations or not, still trying to argue that the heathen nations can be saved, all right. That's what you Christians are all in uproar against, the Israelites, okay. But meanwhile, when it comes to those small, those tiny tops, all right, Netanyahu using the Bible to wage war and justify genocide out there in Gaza, you Christians have nothing to say against that. You see that? But it says, especially you Edomite Christians, it says, Psalms 50 verse 21 says, these things hast thou done. See that? These things have you done, Esau Edom, and I kept silence. Though thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself, but I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. So you see that? So for the longest, for centuries and generations upon generations, you Edomites, all right, all because Yahweh Shema Shai is set back and let you Edomites go forward with your wickedness and do your thing throughout the earth for the sake of prophecy coming to pass. You Edomites really and truly thought that the Lord was supporting you in your wickedness. You really and truly thought that the Most High is a so-called white man and his begotten Son is a so-called white man, all right? And you really thought that the Most High and the Son was all for your Edomite supremacy and for America and all these things, okay? But you've been greatly deceived, as it speaks of in Job the 12th chapter. The deceived and the deceiver are his, okay, in the hands of Yahweh Shema Shai. So the Lord has you devils in the trick bag, okay? Putting the spirit upon you to harden your hearts, to do your wickedness, okay, with confidence out of the roof. All right, no fear of the Lord in the back of your minds. No no consideration of the latter end of your doings. Just completely, doing wickedness after wickedness and wickedness, waging war after war after war, great robbery and murder, putting hell upon his people. And the Lord has sat back and allowed you devils to do all these things for the purpose of prophecy being fulfilled. But now we're at the point where now the Lord is making inquisition upon your wickedness and casting you down. All right, first and foremost by the word going out before he sends his begotten son, Yahweh Shai, back to physically bring you down, all right, with the brightness of his coming. Okay? So going back, let's go back to Jeremiah 49. First, let me take a water break. All right. This is back in Jeremiah 49 and verse 12. It says, "For thus saith the Lord, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup." It says, uh, "They whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken, and art thou he that shall go altogether unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it." The Lord has allowed you devils for a period of time to do all your evils and your wickedness unpunished, but now we're at the point where now the Lord is punishing you. He's first and foremost punishing you by truth being sprung up, okay, the elect waking up, and then it's all leading to him, the Most High, punishing you devils with his right hand, Yahweh Shai. Okay, it says, verse 13, "For I have sworn by myself, saith the Lord Yahweh, that Basra shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual waste." So, the Lord, the Most High Yahweh himself, swore upon himself that he would make Basra a desolation. Okay, and we know in the scriptures, as it tells you in Hebrews, it is impossible for the Most High to lie. All right, and as it even tells you in Isaiah 55, the Most High's word doesn't come back to him void, but what? It accomplishes everything that he says, roughly paraphrasing it. So, the fact that we just read right here, the Most High Yahweh himself have sworn by himself that he will make Basra a desolation. Now, who is Basra in end-time prophecy? Basra is America, Babylon the Great. Because when you go into the history of Basra, Basra was the capital city of the land of Edom back in ancient times. See that? It was the capital, chief hub of Esau, Edom, back in the land of Edom back in ancient times. Well, nowadays, in this current time, what is the chief hub or the chief land of Edomite supremacy in the earth in latter days? America, Babylon the Great. Okay? So, the Basra that we read of throughout end time prophecy, okay, is speaking of America, Babylon the Great. The Lord's going to make this place desolate. Okay? It says, verse 14, "I have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador sent unto the heathen, saying, Gather ye together and come against her and rise up to the battle." See that? And that's what's happening throughout the earth. All these different countries, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, especially, India, Pakistan, all, the BRICS nations. All these nations are rising up against Babylon the Great America, okay, through the spirit of the Lord to wage war against this place, all right, to make this place desolate. See that? It says, verse 15, Jeremiah 49, verse 15, it says, For lo, I will make thee small among the heathen and despised among men. Esau, Edom is despised among men all throughout the four corners of the earth, as it's a shameful spewing upon his glory. Okay, Amalek is especially being despised among men. As a matter of fact, uh, let me go back to that article real quick. Speaking about TikTok. All right, this is going back to the article that I was reading earlier about TikTok. All right, again, this is the article that I'm reading from. You see the website of it, and you see the title of the article as well. And going back a little bit further down this article, it says, let's see. Okay, it says on paper, the deal is about national security and data privacy. However, in practice, it appears to be about power and control, controlling the narrative, right? It says of one of the most influential platforms for young people in the world and how it will shape political narratives, particularly on Israel. It says TikTok's role in broadcasting images of Israel's war on Gaza and the way that has shifted American public opinion has been central to the pressure campaign that forced the sale. So you see that? So that's the ultimate reason why, okay, the elites of Esau Edom has used this Trump administration to sell the U.S. branch of TikTok to pretty much under the control of the small hats, to pretty much cover up all the wickedness and the atrocities and the genocide that those 48ers are doing to the people out there in Gaza. All right, they want to take back control of the narrative. You see that? Because what? They're being exposed, they're being called out, they're being made bare. It's a shameful spewing on all that glory. All right, and they know that all these things are leading to Yahweh Shema Shai bringing judgment upon them. All right. And also as well, I want to show this as well. This was all right. This was an article from naturalnews.com, and this article came out last year on May 8th, 2024. All right, you see that this article is from naturalnews.com, and you already see the title of it. Okay, you see the title of it. All right, and you see, whose face is on that picture. All right, and mind you, again, this is from last year in 2024. So even going back, almost a year and a half ago, this Trump character, okay, he already pretty much told you, what his whole entire agenda was going to be about when he would get back in office. Okay, all for, okay, not to forward the best interests of the American people, the middle class, and to bring back jobs again, and rebuild up the middle class of America again and make America great again. No, this guy was put in office, okay, to make, okay, Amalek great again. Okay, and even so much as you see the title of this article again. Okay, this is from last year. It says Trump says death penalty a proper punishment for anti-Sem in America. Babylon the Great. See that? Speaking as a dragon. Wait, all these people here in America, especially these MAGA hats out here, these red-blooded, patriotic MAGA hat Edomites. Okay, this is what you guys Trump was all about upon getting back in office. It wasn't about making your ass great. It was about making Amalek great. Okay, your tiny top brothers that's over there in the land of Israel right now. Okay, that's controlling your government. All right, and now getting ready to control your freedom of speech. We're really getting ready to eliminate your freedom of speech for that matter. Okay, control your TikTok. All right, all to what? Control the narrative, to keep from being exposed. Okay, to suppress the shameful spewing that's being poured upon all their glory. You see that? So again, you Edomites, hey, you Edomites are being brought to naught in these latter days because you're the terrible one. You're the tyrant. All right? You're the problem in the earth. Okay? You're the reason why, we, the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, sigh and cry to Yahweh Shema Shai, to send Yahweh Shai back and get busy on this earth, because this, we, the hopeful elect, and even the earth itself is crying for the sons of God to be made manifest again, as it speaks of in Romans 8. This earth is crying out for a righteous rulership again, okay, to be ruled over by the Son of the Most High, Yahweh, which is Yahweh Shai, and his elect, the tabernacle of David, okay, to restore this earth back to righteousness again via the laws and the commandments, okay. And we know that as long as the earth is under your rulership, Esau, Edom, we can never see that. We can never have that. All right. So back in Jeremiah 49 and verse 15 again says, "For lo, I will make thee small among the heathen and despised among men." Verse 16, "Thy terribleness hath deceived thee, and the pride of thine heart." See that? Thy terribleness hath deceived thee. So showing you that the terrible one that we read of in Isaiah 20, Isaiah 29, we can liken that to Esau, Edom. As we're reading right here in Jeremiah 49, prophecy against Esau, Edom, Jeremiah 49 and 16 again, "Thy terribleness hath deceived thee." See that? So Esau is that terrible one. And his terribleness, all right, his wickedness, his violence, his great robbery and murder, his pseudoscience and his technology has deceived him. Okay, deceived him into thinking that what? That he's going to continue to go unpunished, that he's never going to be judged by Yahweh Shema Shai, okay? That he's, pretty much God over the earth, all right? And it says, "Thy terribleness had deceived thee, and the pride of thine heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, that holdest the height of the hill. Though thou shouldest make thy nest as high as the eagle, I will bring thee down from hence, said the Lord." And our beloved forefather Obadiah, quoted these same words. Esau's pride has deceived him at an all-time high. He's dwelleth in the clefts of the rock. Okay. He says within his heart, "Who shall bring me down to the ground?" But as the Lord said, "I will bring thee down from thence," said the Lord. Okay, the Lord is bringing this devil down. All right, bringing him down to naught, first and foremost by his word going out. Okay, then after that, he's going to physically bring him down with his right hand, Yahweh Shai, with the brightness of his coming. You see that? Hey, so these Edomites, their time is up. Okay, and that's why they're getting ready to come down with the sword. All right, get Revelation. Revelation. Revelation chapter 12. Matter of fact, I'm going to start at verse 10. It says, Revelation chapter 12 and verse 10. It says, "And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our power, and the power of his anointed, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Says, For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our power day and night." Esau, Edom, he's being cast down. Okay, he's being exposed, he's being made bare. Okay, there's all types of statistics coming out where he's the biggest criminal here in Babylon the Great. He's number one at committing the most mass shootings and the most, children going missing and trafficking. Okay, he's the number one drug dealer here in Babylon the Great. He's the number one liar in Babylon the Great, America. He's the number one problem here in Babylon the Great. And he's the number one problem throughout the whole four corners of the earth, for that matter. You see that? It says, and that's why Esau, he's getting ready to come with his accusations. He's getting ready to make a man an offender for a word, especially against us, the hopeful elected men of the Lord. He's getting ready to deem what we preach as hate speech, okay, because we go into the scriptures and call him out for his BS. We call out his beast system, this NWO that he's getting ready to set up in the earth. We call out all this AI and technology, which is all left-hand miracles and counterfeit power, pursuant to 2 Thessalonians 2nd chapter. And we call out his number one miracle, which is going to be that micro chip, okay, that RFID CHIP, the MOTB. All right, we call all these things out, all right, because Esau is going to push his NWO and his technology and his AI as peace and safety, right? And so, as we preach this gospel, he's going to claim that we're basically preaching against and speaking against peace and safety. We're speaking against order being reestablished in the earth. And so, therefore, he's going to be pushing the narrative that we need to be taken out of here. Okay? We need to be deleted. But, hey, it's all just accusations at the end of the day. Whereas we have a testimony. See that? And the testimony always triumphs in accusation. All right. But it says, matter of fact, verse 11, Revelation 12, verse 11, it says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. It's talking about us, the hopeful elect. You know, we're going to overcome this devil and all his accusations and all of his weapons and his pseudoscience and all of that. By what? By the blood of Hamashiach Yahushua, okay, that the Wa, pursuant to Ezekiel 9 and 4, that mark of exemption. And it says, and by the word of their testimony. You see that? So being covered by the blood of Yahushua and this testimony, this gospel that we preach, is, you know, two major keys is going to help us overcome this beast system, this image and this mark, and receive salvation, okay, through Hamashiach Yahushua. It says, and they love not their lives unto the death. You know, we don't love none of this shit here in Babylon the Great. We don't love the food. We don't love the entertainment in this place no more. The bread and circus. Okay, we don't love the money system in this place. We don't love going to the grocery store in this place no more. No more, because really, all right, the things that we buy out of the grocery store, you know, the food and the produce and the meat and the dairy and all these things. Really, the Lord ultimately created all these things out of the earth. The earth is supposed to be our grocery store. You see that? The earth is supposed to be our deli section, our produce section, our you know, the section where we get herbs and spices and all these things. The earth is supposed to be our dairy section. You see that? But because Esau Edom with this tyrannical rulership has pretty much stripped the average person from being able to have it like that, you know, to have land and to be able to grow their own food and raise their own cattle and all these things. We're pretty much reduced to what? Going to Esau Edom, you know, going to supermarkets and storehouses to buy, you know, the necessary things that we need, okay? And with Esau Edom building up all these supermarkets and all these things, that allows for another aspect of Esau to have control, to control what's in your supermarket, to control what food you're able to buy and what things you're able to drink, the meat you're able to buy, the produce that you're able to buy. These things put all those things into control of Esau Edom, right? And that's why he's getting ready to come with that MOTB, okay, to where you're not going to be able to buy or sell anything unless you have that micro seal, okay, which is going to be Esau's ultimate form of control, all right, over the mass of the people, all right. But it says, Revelation 12, verse 12, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time left. Esau knows he has but a short time left to rule. Okay, he knows all of his lies and enchantments and deception is all wearing off. He knows that his psyops and that he's pushing all over people is starting to wear off. People are waking up. People are calling them out. Okay, he knows that the witchcraft is not working no more, and so therefore what? He's getting ready to come down with great wrath. He's cornered. He's caught. Okay, all right. He's exposed, and pretty much he has no other choice at this point but to stir up civil war, okay, to justify coming down with the sword, coming down with great wrath, as well as coming down with the charagma. But hey, what does it say about a man that's full of great wrath? Okay, what is the Lord going to do to a man, in this case Esau Edom, that's full of great wrath? Okay, this is Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 19. It says, a man of great wrath shall suffer punishment. Hey, we just read in Jeremiah 49 that the Lord, that Esau Edom is not going to go unpunished, right? Proverbs 19 verse 19 again. A man of great wrath shall suffer punishment, for if thou deliver him, yet thou must do it again. So hey, Esau's great wrath is going to lead to the Lord coming down with great wrath upon him. You see that? And Esau's not going to go unpunished. All right? And let's see, let me get this. All right, bear with me for a second. Let's see. This is, all right, let me get this. So I can go to Jeremiah Jeremiah 15, Jeremiah chapter 15 and verse 19. It says, therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, if thou return, then will I bring thee again, and thou shalt stand before me. We, the hopeful elect, are returned back to Yahweh B'Shem Shai, okay, through this word, through the Holy Spirit, right? It says, and if thou take forth the precious from the vial, thou shalt be as my mouth, okay? And the prophets are likened to the mouth of the Lord. Even as the Lord is telling Jeremiah right here, if you take away the precious from the vial, you shall be as my mouth. The prophets are likened to the mouthpiece of Yahweh B'Shem Shai, taking the precious from among the vial. Okay, what is the precious? The elect. You see, we labor, okay, in priest's word, ultimately for the elect to wake up. See that? And it says, let them return unto thee, but return not thou unto them. Verse 20, and I will make thee unto this people a fenced brazen wall, and they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee. You see that? Esau is getting ready to fight against us. He's getting ready to come down with great wrath, all right, like a flood. But hey, as it speaks of in Isaiah 19, Isaiah 59, verse 19, when the Esau comes down with great wrath like a flood, and the Lord's going to lift up that standard against him for us, to protect us. Lord will not be of that number of the elect, and the Lord's going to make known who are chosen in that day. It says, Jeremiah 15, verse 16 again, therefore, thus saith the Lord, if thou return, Slakia, verse 20, and I will make thee unto this people a fenced brazen wall, and they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee. For I am with thee to save thee and to deliver thee, saith the Lord. And that's the Lord talking to us, the hopeful elect. And the Lord, as it speaks up in 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter, the Lord had not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation through Yahweh Shai Mashiach. That's in 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter. The Lord didn't wake us up, the hopeful elect in these latter days, to stand upon our feet and preach this everlasting gospel, and make this great sacrifice under Yahweh Shai's sacrifice, all to just leave us out here to dust and to be conquered and knocked off by Esau Edom, and allow Esau Edom to get the victory and the birthright back. No, the Lord raises up, okay, to ultimately show his power upon Esau by taking him down, and to show his power through us by delivering us through his right hand, Yahweh Shai, that angel that delivered us out of ancient Egypt, right? And it says, verse 21, and I will deliver thee, Jeremiah 15, verse 21, and I will deliver thee out of the hand of the wicked, and I will redeem thee out of the hand of the terrible one. You see that? And the Lord's going to do that through his right hand, Yahweh Shai Mashiach, okay, whom we wholeheartedly have faith in, okay, who is our atonement for our sins, okay, who is our resurrection and our way back to the Most High Yahweh, okay, and who's our author and finisher of our faith, Yahweh Shai. He's the one that the Most High is going to use to deliver us out of the hand of the terrible and the wicked in his day, as the Lord has always done in times past. You see that? And so, hey, matter of fact, let me just get one more before I close out. All right, as the terrible one, Esau Edom, is brought to naught and being cast down. All right, let me just get this to close out. This is the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms, chapter 20 and verse 7. It says, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our power, Yahweh B'Shem Shai. That's us, the hopeful elect. Okay, verse 8. They are brought down and fallen, but we are risen and stand up. Save Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai. Let the king hear us when we call. See that? So the terrible one, Esau Edom, is brought to naught and brought down and fallen, cast down, and we, the hopeful elect, are risen and stand up. See that? Through Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. All right? So wait. So with that, Lord willing, this camp speaking was edifying. Before I close out, I want to say, Call Halal Yamla, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Harakak. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone, from whom I learned the truth from, and also peace and salutations to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, Kwam Yesha'Allah, Abad Babal, And until next time, Lord willing, Shalom.